Today's episode is vulnerable and it's real. We're talking about romance and what it actually means to get out of your own way. Because what if the guy wanted to show up? Your soulmate, your husband, the love of your life, the man that God created, anointed, appointed, and assigned to your life to love you, to take care of you, to show up for you, to support you. What if that guy wanted to come in? And we have so many momentums of thought built up. We have so many stories we tell ourselves about what the guys aren't doing, or the guy that's not ready, or the difficulties that we're experiencing in the current connections or entanglements or whatever that we have going on in our lives. What if you could water all of that down? What if everything else was just complete and utter bullshit? And at the end of the day, the only truth, the only ultimate truth, the only thing that mattered was that your guy wants to show up for you. And the conversation that we're having in today's episode is about how can you be open? How can you get out of your own way? What if it wasn't about him? What if it wasn't about his problems? What if it wasn't about his quote unquote flaws? And what if the difficulties that were happening in your relationships weren't just difficulties? What if a part of you wanted the difficulties? What if a part of you wanted the drama, not for the entertainment, but because you were afraid of intimacy, afraid of being loved and seen, afraid of being vulnerable in a way that you've never been vulnerable before? And you don't have to be vulnerable with a man when you're picking apart his flaws and pushing him out of your life. You don't have to be vulnerable with a man. You don't have to be open about the flaws that you have, whether you feel like they're in your personality or your body or your career, the things that you feel like you lack. You don't have to be open and honest about any of that when you're too busy being focused on everything that he's not doing and how he's not showing up and how the men in your neighborhood aren't worth a damn and how there's no good men in your city. Sometimes the difficulty is just the surface, the superficial thing that we're focusing on, because really we're avoiding vulnerability. We're avoiding honesty. We're avoiding putting ourselves out there. We're avoiding committing to our happiness. And here's what I know for sure. When you commit to your happiness, when you release the pain of the past, when you process your childhood experiences, and when you tell yourself a new story, when you tell yourself the story that your soulmate is your destiny and he's on his way to you and he's looking for you and he's showing up for you and he wants to show up for you in your life, when you tell yourself that story, when you tell yourself the story that you were made for an amazing love, when you tell yourself the story that you're ready, when you tell yourself the story that it's safe to be vulnerable, you attract that, you call that in, you magnetize that into your life, you create space, and you build up a belief system that favors that relationship. Your mindset is soil. You know what I'm saying? And you get to use your thoughts and your focus and your attention to work that land and create something that is fertile so that the love of your desire has the opportunity to grow because it wants to. Oh, that was such a beautiful intro. You're going to love this episode. I suggest listening to it all the way through. Of course, let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Shout out to everybody commenting. I love you guys and I see you guys and I appreciate you guys and I'm so happy to have you guys here. Mwah. And yeah, send me your thoughts. DM me. screenshot this, post it to your story, tag me. I want to know that you're listening. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know that you're loving it. I want to know that it's helping you. If you do the journal prompts, let me know what your answers are. Put them in the comments section so that I can show you some love right back. All right. I love you, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Right now, you're listening to Naked and Noisy, Manifestation Tools for the Professional Woman. I'm Natalie Hughes, your host and your coach in this series. In each episode, I'm giving you the tools that you need to create the life you've always dreamed of without the soul-crushing sacrifice that you were taught to endure. Whether you're ready to be treated like the industry leader that you are, you're ready to be drunk in love with your soulmate, or you're ready to wake up to a closet full of Jimmy Choo every morning, this is the podcast for you. My name is Natalie Hughes, and I was abandoned. That's all that I have to say. Thanks so much for coming to today's episode. Love talking to you, Miranda. There's really no more to discuss. That's what I wish that I could say here. I have been observing myself, which, I do. As a self-aware girly, I have been observing myself. And I have observed a pattern in myself that I didn't love. Let me rephrase that. I have observed a pattern in myself that wasn't supportive. And it also didn't align with my identity. I had the identity that I'm the person that gets abandoned. I had the identity that, it's never me making the mistake. And I don't mean that literally. I can acknowledge my mistakes and my faults, obviously. But, I had the perception, and I told the story that I'm always the one who tries. I'm always the one who puts in energy and effort. I'm always the one who puts themselves out there, and I'm the one who gets rejected, and I'm the one who gets shut down, and I'm the one who has the negative experience, right? It's always the guy doing something terrible to me. And, honestly and truthfully, yes, that has happened several times where men have done, bullshit to me. That's so true. And also, at the same exact time, I had to, let me start that sentence over. I became aware of a behavior within myself, a behavior of running away, a behavior of sabotage, and of fear. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, which you should be, and if you haven't been, then I suggest you go and listen to everything that I've ever shared, ever, in the history of existence, because it's good. But if you've been listening to the podcast, then I think you will have heard me talk about fear and how fear and getting scared. I'm so sorry. That notification might have been a little bit loud in the microphone. I'm so sorry. How fear and getting scared can manifest in ways that don't exactly make sense. So sometimes you're scared and you're thinking to yourself, I'm so scared. And other times, I would say most times, when it comes to my clients, when it comes to myself, what I've observed within myself, most time, fear doesn't really show up as you saying, I'm scared. Fear shows up in a sneaky way. Because what happens when you're afraid? You want to protect yourself. And so you can be experiencing a fear, but that energy, that experience of being afraid is incredibly vulnerable. And most of us really don't allow ourselves to sit in a vulnerable position or a vulnerable state and just be, there, vulnerable. Most of us, and this is like the way that we're wired as human beings, most of us are not going to sit and just be like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. What am I going to do? I'm so scared. That doesn't happen. When you experience fear, then a protective mechanism is going to come into play, right? You have fight and flight and freeze and fawn. You have protective parts. You have protective mechanisms that are wired into your biology. You have protective mechanisms that you inherited from your parents, that you observed, that you developed as a consequence of your lived experience. So when you're afraid, I wouldn't suggest, or when you're doing this work, today we're talking about love and romance, but this goes for anything. When you're creating something new, I wouldn't look for fear by asking myself, why am I so afraid? Or I wouldn't, how can I put this out of my brain and into my mouth and into the microphone? I just want you to understand that fear doesn't look like you going, I'm afraid. If I was looking for fear, I would look for avoidance. I would look for, what am I protecting myself from? How is this behavior protecting me from something? How is this experience protecting me from something? I've been working through the Love After Loss course. I've been doing some, remodeling on the landing page, working on getting that nice and sexy, which I'm very excited about. But I've also been going through the course because I need it. And a workshop that I just created and added into the course today, one of the questions, because it's my way, it's set up in the way that I really like to ask questions, which is uncovering those subconscious, unhelpful stories, expanding that, challenging those stories, debunking those stories, challenging yourself to think differently, and then empowering journal prompts that are going to get you into the vibration of your desire, that are going to get you into an empowered state around what you want. And in this case, with this workbook, it's about romance. So one of the questions, which I'm going to see if I have it right here. One of the questions is, how have I been making things in romance more difficult than they need to be? And I hate that question. And I don't hate the question because it's a bad question. It's a good question, and it's too good of a question. You know that meme? Like across social media where it's this video or this audio of this girl, and she's like, that's really good. That's really good. And you know what? I'm going to block you. That's how I feel. That's a really good question. You're really good for asking me that. And you know what? I'm going to block you. Meaning, I actually don't want to look at this. I love this question. I don't like how I feel as I'm searching for that answer within myself. I don't like what this is bringing up within me. And I'd like to look away from this, actually. And that's avoidance. Perfect example. That's a protective mechanism. You're asking me a question that is guiding me into a feeling of vulnerability, that is guiding me into a state that makes me feel vulnerable, that makes me feel unsafe. And in order to protect myself, you know what? Maybe we should just avoid this entirely. Who else agrees? And then my angels and ancestors and guides say, not us, actually. Not us, actually. Because some of us would like to reincarnate at some point. So we're going to hold space for you, but we need you to make it do what it does, Queen. We need you to get married by tomorrow. Because there's a long line of dead people that are waiting for passage through your womb. So, you know, anytime now, answer the fucking question. I'm just kidding. That wasn't a conversation that was had. But the point is, I saw that question. And then I observed one of my own behaviors, which is so funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. Haha. It's funny like, oh, well, that's interesting. Because I've been having this experience. There's this guy. And I've observed myself in this experience with this guy. Like, constantly walking away, not being available, and just ready to abandon ship, which is not something I ever experienced before, because I'm the girl who's like, love me, choose me, pick me. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with vulnerability. Well, that's what I was, and that's what I did for like 3 years. And then what I wanted didn't happen. Thank you, Jesus. The guy that I wanted, I didn't get. Bless it. Amen. And you can't hear them, but there's a chorus of angels and they're singing. They're singing hallelujah. Anyway, so it was like 3 years of my life, and it was a guy that I really wanted. We refer to him as the incident on this podcast. You know, it was something that I really wanted that I didn't get. And now I'm having my Beyonce best thing that I never had perspective on the whole entire situation. And then I got this guy who, for all intents and purposes, they're like, look at you. They're like, look at you. They're like, look at you. Okay, the way that I grow and expand as a person and as a human being and as somebody who has a lot of like Aries energy, I don't have an experience. I think some people have guides that are like very like cruel and mean to them, but my like spirit guides, angels, and ancestors will kind of like like the best way to inspire me to do something as somebody who has like a lot of Martian energy, who has like a lot of Aries energy, is to say like, you won't, like, like reverse psychology. Like, I bet you won't do this. Like, I bet you won't be vulnerable right now. You won't. And it's like, you think I won't? You think I won't? You think I want to express myself? You think I won't be open and honest about how I feel and what's alive within me? I look like a bitch to you? And then I do it. And then I express myself. So anyway, that's just how I live. I don't know about you, but it works for me, Miranda. So I'm observing within myself how I've avoided vulnerability. And I have to be vulnerable with you. And I'm going to pretend that this man, who maybe possibly will listen to this podcast, I have to pretend that he's not going to listen to this podcast, okay? And it's just me and you, Miranda. And it's just us. And it's just us girls, being honest, okay? Because I'm still working on the vulnerability part. And maybe they're right, and maybe I won't. I'm working through it, okay? This man is everything that I have ever wanted or dreamed of. This guy is perfect. And it's freaking me the fuck out. Because I said that I was ready. And I said that I healed all the stuff. And I have healed a lot of stuff. And I am more ready than I have ever been in my life. And when I originally called him into my life for the most recent time, I was more ready than I had ever been in my life. But I did not know that I had so much stuff that still needed to be worked through. And so I called this man into my life who is perfect. And he's perfect in a way that scares the shit out of me. Because he reflects back to me just how ready I am not. And what I really wanted to talk about when I hit record right now was like, this happens when you attract the perfect guy or you keep attracting the perfect guy, but there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with him. I have observed within myself, and I'm sorry if you heard me hit the mic. I talk with my hands. I have observed within myself. So let me tell you what happened. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm going to tell you the best of what I can tell you with what I feel comfortable with sharing with you. Okay, Miranda, you get it. Because sometimes my business just ain't your business, and I'm already being incredibly vulnerable here, and I deserve to have some privacy. Thank you for understanding. So I was looking this man up online, as I do, as I told you about in, most recent episodes, maybe like the past 3-4 episodes, whatever. I was looking him up online, and he's so handsome, and he's such a beautiful person, and something got triggered within me that I wasn't ready to acknowledge. There was something that was triggered within me that I wasn't ready to acknowledge. And I saw this picture of him from many, many years ago, which means nothing to me. And in the picture, he was standing next to this girl. He was standing next to this woman. And it didn't look, please, girl, I'm not talking to her. It didn't look romantic, or it could have been romantic. It really doesn't matter if it was romantic or if it was not romantic. It didn't look like anything. But something completely different had triggered me that I didn't feel like looking at. And I saw this picture of this guy next to this girl, and his hand was on her shoulder, which I think is a crime. It should be against the law. To me, personally, I didn't like it. I felt like that episode of The Office where Michael Scott is like, I would like to report a hate crime. And they're like, Michael, that is not a hate crime. And he's like, well, I hated it. That's how I feel. I saw that picture and I felt like I would like to report a hate crime. But in my logical brain, I'm like, I know that this is not a hate crime. And in my emotional brain, I'm like, well, I hated it. Hate crime or not, I didn't like it. And so I'm having this moment and I'm not falling asleep. And I'm going off and I'm making jokes with myself on my own Twitter account about this is such a terrible crime and I can't believe that he would do this. And I thought that you were a man of God. Touching another woman's shoulders. And it just felt like the worst thing in the world. But it didn't actually feel like the worst thing in the world. I was laughing about it. I was joking about it. But there was something else underneath that I didn't want to look at. I didn't want to focus on. And there have been other things in this connection where I'm trying to find my words. Where like I'm having a really great time. I really like this guy. And I really like his energy. And I really like his ancestors. I really like his spirits. I really like his spirit. I really like his soul. And I also like his spirits, which is really important to me. It's something that I wanted that I did not have with the incident. Okay. So it's like this really great, amazing, wonderful thing. And then I will see something, or I will be reminded of something, or I will feel something. And it's not even necessarily about his behavior or who he is as a person, but I will see something and I'm like, whoa, I think this is a deal breaker. I don't know. I don't think I can deal with this. I don't know. I don't think I can handle this. I don't know. I don't think that I like this. I don't know. I don't think, probably not. No. Are you sure? Are you sure? And then I start having a conversation with God, angels, universe, my ancestors. Are you sure? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't the guy for me. I don't know. I don't think so. And I'm like, I don't really know that I like this, this, and this. And I can't be specific because sometimes the thoughts are just fucking ridiculous. But let's just say, I'm trying to think of something that's very neutral and that's also not a real example. Let's say, let's say that he is short. It's not true that he is short, but let's say that he is short. Perfect example. So I'm like, I love this guy. I love who he is. I love his energy. I love this about him. 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 This is so good. And 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 then I go, but he's kind of short, don't you think? And I go, he is kind of short. And then suddenly, his shortness is like a really big problem for me in my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can be with a man who's so short. I've never dated a man who's so short before. I've never been with a man who's so short before. I don't know. Are you sure? Do you think, is this a good idea? I don't think that this is a good idea at all, actually. But the thing about it is that in all of my times of making my lists of men and guys and all of the things that I want and all of the things that are important to me in this, made up example, I never put that I want a guy who's really tall. And so then I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't think that I want this guy because this guy's just a little bit too short. I don't know. And then I'll see another guy who's handsome and taller. And I'll say, yeah, I like his height. His height's really good. And then my spirits, guides, angels, ancestors, they're like, okay, so do you want this guy? Do you want this guy that showed up on your Twitter timeline? Is this what you're saying? If this guy were to walk into your reality, this is the guy that you would want? And then I go, well, no, because... well, no, because I actually like that guy's spirit better. And I actually like his energy better. Well, no, I don't think that guy is actually better. So you know what? No, it doesn't matter that he's short. I actually don't care that he's short at all. And then the next day, it's not how short he is. It's the fact that he lives in Tennessee. He doesn't live in Tennessee, but, just a made up fucking thing. It's the fact that he lives in Tennessee. I don't know. I don't know if I could date a guy that lived in Tennessee. And it's like, there's something deeper going on. I sat and I'm free writing. I'm doing my journaling because I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. There's something deeper going on here. What is happening with you? What is alive within you? And as I'm writing all of this stuff down, it's like there's nothing that I wrote down that means anything about anything. And what I mean when I say that is that there's nothing that I wrote down like, okay, what's wrong with him? He lives in Tennessee and he's too short. It's like you're creating this list of problems and then you look over this list of problems and it's like, well, but is this actually a problem? And it's like, well, no. Well, no, it's not actually a problem. And it's like, well, what's going on? What's happening underneath all of this? And it turns out that what's happening underneath all of this is my parents' relationship problems. And the fact that I was abandoned. I was abandoned and I didn't even know that I was abandoned. Because yes, I had moments when I was a kid and I wanted to have a happy family. But then my parents both got together and then they just collectively ignored me. And I was even more neglected than when my mom was just a single mom. And so then I was like, well, I fucking hate their relationship. And I also really strongly dislike my dad. I really rejected and pushed away my dad for a majority of my life. So when I was dealing with relationships, not just this guy, but relationships over the years. And and I'm being ghosted or mistreated or all of these other things are happening, and I'm doing inner child work and I'm looking at my past and I'm focusing on my mother and all of this stuff. I never even thought that my dad was like an issue. I thought that he didn't even exist. Like, I knew my father and he was in my life. I knew that he existed, but the problems that had on my relationships, what? Even though I know about this shit, even though I teach about this shit, even though I support women in moving through this shit, I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I had spent so much time actively rejecting my dad that I didn't realize and understand that not having a dad impacted me. And even though my dad was there for a lot of my life, I didn't want him there for a lot of my life. He never actively tried to actually build out a relationship with me. My dad didn't know how to be a dad, and he wasn't seeking to learn. He was a great uncle to a lot of people, really great friend to a lot of people, really great romantic partner. I don't know if I would put really great, but they were together on and off for all the, years of my existence. So, he had relationships with these people. These people really loved this guy. These people really had a connection with this guy. And I didn't have that at all. And he didn't try to seek that with me at all. And when I'm dealing with guys and my romantic life, and guys don't try to get to know me at all, and guys don't show up for me at all, and I'm ghosted and rejected and abandoned, it's my fucking dad. And it pisses me off. And it makes me want to cuss him out. And if he was alive today, I would. Because that is so fucked up. But I didn't even know it. I didn't even realize it. And so I'm dealing with this abandonment wound, going deeper in my own healing of my abandonment wound in my life. And I'm realizing that this part of me expects to be disappointed, expects not to be taken care of, expects not to be loved, expects to be abandoned. And this part of me feels so unsafe with this man who is perfect. Now, I don't know if you've ever had an experience like this. Okay? But there's a very popular joke in the spiritual community among people who read tarot or do oracle readings or things like that, where you're like getting a reading done on a guy, and the reading is like Tower, 10 of Swords, 5 of Swords, 7 of Swords, like King of Cups, reversed, like just the worst cards that you could ever possibly fucking get. And the tarot reader is like, "Ooh, this doesn't look good." And you're like, "Pull the cards again, shuffle the cards again, shuffle again." Like, I don't accept this. I have had that experience with this man, except the opposite, where from the beginning of connecting with this guy, I was on the side of my house, and the incident was over. The incident was done. The incident was dead. The incident was old news. This was in like the end of summer 2022. The incident is over. The incident is done. I've had my final moment with this guy where I was just like, okay, I'm done. 110% done. I'm never doing this again. I'm never connecting with this man again. I never want to speak to this man again. I never want to think about this man again. Like, this man is dead to me. I'm so done. I've never been more done with anything in my life. Taylor Swift, we are never getting back together. You go talk to your friends, talk to my friends, talk to me. But we are never, ever, 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 ever getting back together. Okay? That was my vibe. Never again. So that happened. I was fed up. I was on the side of my house. I was smoking some weed. And I was like talking to God, angels, universe, spirit guides, most specifically. And I was like, send me my person. I'm so fucking ready. I am so fucking ready. I'm so done. I'm so ready. Let's go. And then I heard my guide say to me, what about the guy's name? And I was like, the guy? And it took me a minute to remember who the guy was and how I met the guy. And I was like, this guy, question mark, like, don't mean to question you, but also this guy, question mark, not like something was wrong with him, or not like he was unattractive, but just like, I thought that was just a weird thing that kind of sort of really didn't happen in like 2018, like it wasn't something that I really felt was significant, but they told me to check out the guy. So I checked out the guy. And at that same time, I didn't have certainty with myself. I didn't have certainty with my guides and what my guides had said. I had friends at the time who were psychic. They're no longer my friends. Amen. Hallelujah. Angel chorus is singing. But I had friends at the time who were psychic. And I had like asked both of them about it. And God, angels, universe is like, oh my God, this is your guy. This is the one. And I was not buying it. I just was not buying it. Like, I took the action steps. And I don't like the way you're telling the story. I'm telling the story like I'm a robot who doesn't have feelings and who doesn't have desire. I'm not telling you the story so that you know the whole entire story of everything that happened. There are more feelings and there is more desire in the story. That's just not the intentions of me telling you the story. The point of me telling you the story right now is that I was constantly being told and sent really positive, supportive messages about this guy. And even still, I had an unsupportive idea of who he was, which ironically came from my own insecurities, my own past experiences, the stories I was telling myself, but also a friend that I had years ago. God, you really know how to cut people off. Because she and I are no longer friends anymore. Amen. And the angel choir sings. So I have this friend, and this was... Me and this guy have a history. It's weird. I have a history with this guy, but I don't have a history with this guy. Okay? And if you understand that, then you understand that. And if you don't, then just keep listening, and I'm going to make it make sense in a second. Well, not that make it make sense, but it's all going to come together. So I saw this guy in 2018. And then in 2019, I felt to reach out to this guy. And when I felt to reach out to this guy in 2019, I had a friend of mine at the time who also knew this guy, not like knew this guy personal, so close, but knew this guy, like knew of this guy, like went to school with this guy, like was in the same grade as this guy. You know what I mean? Like she knew this guy. So I asked her about this guy, and she did not have nice things to say. It wasn't like she went on and on and on about how he's the worst guy on planet Earth, but she was just like, he's a stereotypical, not the kind of person who you would want to be with. Okay? Long story short. So my friend didn't like the guy. And the guy and I did not connect in 2019 at all. And so there were remnants of that in 2022 when I felt to reach out to the guy again. And things just didn't come together because of, well, you know, his own stuff, and also everything that I just told you about. My name is Natalie Hughes, and I was abandoned, and I didn't even know that it was a fucking issue until like 2 days ago. I didn't even know that it was an issue because I was raised growing up by a single mother who didn't need no man. I thought that we didn't need men. I thought that it was irrelevant. I don't have any more to say about it. I didn't know that it was a relevant detail. I didn't know that it was important. I didn't know that it was anything that deserved to be looked at, which is crazy, but I didn't know, and I forgive myself. So things with the guy don't come together in 2022. Okay. And when things with the guy don't come together in 2022, it really pisses me off. Not it really pisses me off because we didn't come together. It really pisses me off because he did not make a very good impression on me. And I don't know, maybe I also didn't make a good impression on him. I don't fucking know. But it was not coming together. And so I'm like, fuck this. I'm done. I'm walking away. Don't care about what the universe has said. Don't care about what God has said. Blah, 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 blah. I can find another man. Like, that was my whole thing. Which, like, you know, live your best life. Be on your own journey. And I don't even know what the fuck happened over the past year and a half, almost 2 years. Oh my God. Oh my God. I was going to say something. Okay, I'm going to say it and then I'm going to explain to you why I just screamed, oh my God. It's something about this man's energy that I didn't want to say out loud because I've been in my own mind telling the story that I might not be right, and I might not be able to trust myself, and I might not be able to trust what I know to be true. And I look on my computer right now. My notes app is open because I pulled up the journal prompts, and on the little sideline, it has preview of the other notes, and it says previous 30 days. And the the note at the very top says, I was right, comma, I knew. From April 3rd, 2024. And then things like that happen. Things like that have been happening. Where I've been going, I don't want this. I can't do this. That was so terrible. I don't like this. This was unacceptable. I'm so angry about this. I'm so mad at this. And then this other part of me is just like, I know what you are. And I've got a friend who really loves Twilight. And so that's, I guess, a line from Twilight. It's not where I got that phrase from, but now every single time I say I know what you are, I think of Twilight. I've been having this experience and this journey of self-trust. Trusting what I know to be true. And how a part of me for so long has held myself back in my business, my mindset, my belief, my expectations, this relationship, this connection. Because what if I'm wrong? What if in the fall of 2018, I passed that man on the subway and I looked at him and thought that he looked familiar, like I knew him from somewhere. And he looked at me and he thought, she looks like every other bitch. I'm laughing because I do not think that that's what happened. But it's a silly thing to think about and it's funny. What's the point? Wrap it up. The point is, my name is Natalie Hughes and I was abandoned. And I have been avoiding doing the work that I know to do in this relationship, the mindset work, the healing work that I know to do in this relationship. I won't script about it. I can script about it. I can journal about it. I can do things to tap into the vibration of it, but I won't do it. Why not? Because you're scared. And I had to whisper it because, I'm prideful. And I don't like to admit those things. But, the title of the podcast is Naked and Noisy, so whatever. I'll say it. I'm not ashamed. I haven't been doing everything that I know to do. And that takes us back to the journal prompt. How have I been making things in romance more difficult than they need to be? The other day, last week, at some fucking point, time doesn't exist. I got really triggered. And I was just like, nope, this isn't going to work. This is something that you should walk away from, right? That's the thing that I have been observing in myself, if I didn't make that clear already. Just constantly. I'm actually so ready to walk away from this relationship. I'm actually so ready to walk away from this relationship. I'm actually not invested in this at all. I'm actually so able to walk away from this like a fucking badge of honor. Just constantly, all of the time. I forgive this guy for what he did. And I'm so open to reconnecting with him and having a new experience with him. And also, I am so ready to walk away from this. I am like so ready to walk away from this. I have like never been more ready to walk away from anything in my life. Like, God, you just tell me. You just tell me, God. You give me the green light. And I'm out of here, actually. And I actually was already out of here. I was actually out of here from the beginning of time. I've been out of here, actually. So you let me know when you're ready for me to leave, and I'll be gone. I'll be out of here. That has been my experience. That is what I have observed within myself. And it's interesting because that's not who I am. I run in the direction of danger. I'm a Mars ruled woman. I am brave. I am courageous. I am a big boss that handles big business. This year, one thing after another has been bringing up fears within me. I've been taking care of my responsibility. I've been taking care of myself. I've been creating a new experience with money. I've been flowing and allowing and experiencing ease and just like a whole bunch of amazing shit. Like, bitch, I'm killing it. I'm killing it. And with this relationship and with this guy, it's like, and I'm actually ready. I'm actually ready. So if he messes up again, I'm actually so done. I actually am looking for a reason to be done. I'm actually actively searching. I'm actually actively searching. And that's something that I realized. When I looked at that picture and I was joking about it, it's like we talked about this in the last time that we talked about romance on this fucking podcast. Okay, I don't remember when it was. It started off as a joke, ha, and then it wasn't funny, and then I was really angry. And the most recent time, it didn't really turn into me genuinely being angry because I already healed that and I already shifted that, and I don't feel insecure about it at all. And I also don't feel insecure in this connection at all. I have the perspective that if there was another woman in his life who could fill my spot, then she probably would be right now. And if the spot is vacant, then it's probably not them. So like, and we talk about that more extensively in that other episode. It's like the title's like how to overcome jealousy. That's like at the end of it. It's like how to manage triggers in difficult times and overcome jealousy. Like that's the title of that podcast episode where I talk more about that. But like, I shifted that. I don't actually care. I think it's a very funny joke to tell. I'm really loving a possessive joke right now. I'm really loving a possessive joke right now. Like I was I was saying, when this man comes into my life, I'm going to take his shoes and I'm going to write my name on the bottom of them. Actually, I'm going to tattoo my name across his forehead, actually. And I think that's hilarious. And I was joking about the shoe thing, and it was a Toy Story reference. But then I was sitting and thinking to myself, and I was like, hold on. I was like, that's kind of hot. Write that down. Write that down. Put that in my vortex. You guys got that? That's kind of good. Keep that. But what's my point? My point is that the fear didn't show up as me going, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. The fear showed up as me being critical. Anybody else in the house got Venus in the 6th house? Venus in Virgo? Mars in the 6th house? Mars in Virgo? Anybody? Anybody else? I know I do. My fear didn't show up as me saying, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared. My fear showed up as criticism. My fear in relationships has shown up in criticism. Criticism of myself. Criticism of this guy who is so perfect. Everything that I asked for. So amazing that I cry because of what I know and what I feel and what I see. And I was going over the Love After Loss course. And throughout the course, one of the reasons why it's a very, very good course is because I'm giving real life examples as you were going through the material together. And in the material, what I had written down when I created the course, a year ago? Answering one of the questions about what do you want? What do you desire? It's in the 5th module. What do you know? What do you desire? Said I wanted love, something spiritual. I said I wanted to have visions of my future children again. And I wanted to be excited about creating a family again. And that was one of those things that I wrote down. I did the course, and of course I continue to do the work that I'm doing, but I have been prioritizing business and money and stability, which is good and noble, but also a protective mechanism. And I looked back on that, and I looked at my own experience, and you guys, it's so crazy. There are times when it's like, I've never put this into words. It's like jumping timelines, like jumping into a different multiverse where I'll be in the kitchen. Let's say it's breakfast. Let's say I'm making green juice. Let's say I'm listening to gospel music. And I'll be in the kitchen and I'm having a great time. And I'm just, dancing and minding my business. And then it's like in my mind, everything will shift. And it's like I'm in the kitchen of my house, my home. And there's a little baby there. And I'm laughing and joking and playing with this baby, and we're dancing to gospel music. It's like being on the other side. Or I'll have an experience where I'm in the kitchen and I'm getting stuff together and I'm listening to music, and I can see and I can feel as if this is like a morning in the day of my life as a mom who's getting her kids ready for elementary school. It's weird. It's spiritual. Maybe we shouldn't say weird. It's spiritual, and it's different, and it's deeper than anything I've ever experienced before in my life. And this guy checks boxes for me that I didn't even know that I had, things that I put into my vortex, things that didn't make sense until he came into my life. And then I was just like, of course. Of course I'm going to have this experience. Of course things are going to come together like this. Of course I'm going to live in this place. Of course I'm going to raise my family in this place. Of course I'm going to have this. Of course I'm going to do this. Like, I prayed most recently because I'm like, me and God are like besties, right? And we were already BFFs, but we're just developing an even greater intimacy in our relationship right now. And I was having a moment of being triggered, maybe last week, maybe 3 days ago. I don't fucking remember. And I'm like, God, what's my next step? I need you to tell me. I need you to make it clear. I need you to talk to me because I'm not trusting my desire. I'm not trusting what I've heard. I'm not trusting what I've received. I need you to make this so clear. Because if you tell me that this isn't the guy, God, I'm going to walk away. I'm done. I'm ready. And not even like I'm done. Like I'm so fed up, but just like, I'm willing to be done. Like, looking for an excuse to abandon this connection. And I told God, like, make it clear. What's my next step? And then I was going through my Google Photos for the podcast episode that just posted. So this could have been like 4 days ago. If the episode posted on Thursday, this happened on like Friday, if you want a timeline. And I'm looking through my Google Photos. And I was just reminiscing. Then some screenshots from old guys that I dated in the past. So I shared that on Instagram, having a fun time. Just a little kiki with the girls. If you're not following me on Instagram, then you should be. And I found screenshots of poems that I had written years ago. And I wrote poems about the man from the incident. And I looked over the poems and some of the, things didn't resonate because they were about the incident. But it was this poem that took place in a subway. And it was one of the greatest poems that I've ever written. And it was about music, and it was about reconciliation, and it ended in a really sad note. But it was crazy. And then there was another poem, and that poem also ended in a sad note because I was, in my depressed girl era around the incident. This was like in 2019 or 2020. And I'm looking through this poetry and I'm like, this poetry is amazing. And there are certain things that I'm talking about. I'm talking about angels and heaven and all of this spiritual support and all of these things. And then there's a screenshot. It's a screenshot 1111 with a song. A song that I will not share. But I listened to the song. And in the title of the song, and in the chorus of the song, was a word that I had just tweeted, because I was talking about the guy maybe like 5 days before this, and the song was talking to me, and I'm like, God, I think you're talking to me. And then I watched this video. I had this dream, which I will not tell you about, not a sexual dream. A nightmare, not about this guy, but about some sleeping dog that we are letting lie, okay? We call it the incident, and we leave it at that. So I have this nightmare related to the incident, and then I watched this video, and it was talking about the incident, and then in that fucking video, she mentioned the song, the 11:11 song. And there's just a million and one different things. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that in your manifestations, if the guy is perfect, or you keep getting the guys that are so right, like this could be the guy, but it's always this one little thing that's off, that's reflecting something back to you. If you've got the work, if you've got the journals, if you've got the workshops, the courses, the whatever, and you're not taking the action that you know that you could take to bring the relationship together, that's a sign that you're operating out of some wound, that you're scared of something, that you're avoiding some vulnerability. The question that I have for you today is, how have you been making things in romance more difficult than they need to be? And then fine, I'll ask you another question. There's an abundance of these in this workbook, so I'll ask another one. The next question I would ask after that is, what part of you wants that difficulty? How does that difficulty in romance protect you or support you? For me, the difficulty in connecting with this guy protects me from being disappointed and abandoned. I wasn't raised in a happy relationship. I wasn't raised in a family that had its foundation in a happy relationship. And I've got this expectation running through my subconscious mind that love always ends in disappointment. And that the only thing available to me is on again, off again, not consistent love, reliable love, genuine, authentic connection, and a man that shows up. And it's not fair, because what I know to be true is that the guy wants to show up. And this is true in my case, and this is true in your case, Miranda, and this is true in everything. What if the guy wanted to show up? And as long as you're telling the stories that he won't show up, that he can't show up, that it's not safe to have him, then you push it away. how are you sabotaging your own happiness by making things more difficult than they need to be? And how is that protecting you? How is that supporting you? And when you can move through that, then you will have made enough space to allow him in when you start telling that new story about what the guy can be and how the guy can show up. You give him permission to show up in a different way. And it's incredibly similar, like exactly the same as your relationship with God and your manifestations. The money wants to show up, the clients want to show up, the customers want to show up, the people want to show up. But as long as you're telling the story that nobody wants what you have to offer, as long as you're telling the story that people can't afford to pay you, as long as you're telling the story that people in the world are struggling, as long as you're telling the story that there's not enough people in your audience, as long as you're telling the story that nobody's hiring, as long as you're telling the story that it's not going to work, your people can't come in. As long as you're telling the story that God can't do anything to support you, he can't support you, you know? So you got to take your power back. And if today's episode really resonated with you, you're like, Nath Hughes, I'm Miranda, you're speaking to me. If we're in the same boat, and you're like, how do I heal this? How do I shift this? How do you move through this? What do you recommend? I would suggest checking out the Love After Loss course. It's amazing. I'm going through it right now. I have used these processes and this understanding to heal so much. I'm just at my next level of healing and clearing space. In module 1, processing the pain, you will process the negative emotions from your previous romantic experiences so that you can clear space and actually move on. You will learn how to hold space for yourself emotionally, mentally, spiritually, while you go through your healing process so that there's no more rushing yourself or invalidating what you're going through. You will learn how to identify the unsupportive stories you've started telling yourself about who you are and what you get to have in relationships. You go through the relationship, you're like, men ain't shit. There's something deeper there, right? You go through the relationship, you're like, guys don't show up for me. You go through the relationship, you're like, things don't work out for me. You go through the relationship, guys don't prioritize being there for me. You go through the relationship, guys don't prioritize meeting my needs. You might not be saying those phrases exactly, but those are the neural pathways that are firing in the back of your brain. You've got to learn how to identify what stories you started telling as a consequence of those relationships so that you can heal it and you can stop it. In this first module, you will identify the root causes of the drama and the stress and the pain in your previous relationships so that you can get clarity on what is your identity in your relationships and what are your former partner's roles in your life or your former partner's role in your life. And the last thing you're going to do in that first module is you're going to identify your current expectations in romance so you can understand exactly what unhelpful beliefs have contributed to the dynamics you've attracted. Module 1 is all about building that awareness and starting to understand and practice processing those negative emotions, processing those unhelpful stories. What's very, very good about this course is that every single module takes you deeper. It's an incredibly thorough course in that way where we're not just looking at the past really quickly and then moving on from it. No, every single module, we're getting in there, we're going deep, we're bringing the shit up, and we're releasing it and we're clearing it out. It's really, really good in that way. It's also really, really good because I think that it kind of puts the D in DIY. DIY means do it yourself. It really puts that do in do it yourself, because this course, this program is all about exercises. Every single module, yes, there's lecture. Yes, I'm teaching. Yes, I'm sharing, but you're practicing. You're right alongside me answering these journal prompts, bringing up this shit from your past, healing it, clearing it, releasing it. In module 2, you got the breathwork breakdown that I like to put inside of all of my courses. And that's incredibly helpful for you to clear that energy stored on a cellular level. And excuse me, I lied. It's in module 3, not inside of module 2. Module 2 is the EFT tapping series that's linked, which I would highly recommend. And I'm pretty sure that I'm going to add an EFT tapping script in there for that. So look out for that. It's an excellent course. It's very, very, very good. And that's all that I have for you. So if you would like to learn more about that course, there's 5 modules. You can learn what's inside, what you're going to get out of every single module, and enroll using the link in the show notes or the description on YouTube. Today, we talked a lot about how to identify and notice that fear coming up, what to do when you start to recognize, oh, I'm sabotaging something that I prayed for, or I'm sabotaging something that I'm praying for. The Love After Loss course is a program about getting out of your own way. Because it's not always just the guy not showing up for you that's the problem. It's the story you're telling yourself. It's the expectations you have. It's the things about your childhood that you didn't process, that you didn't move through, and it's time to do so. I would love to have you inside of this program if you feel so called. And with that being said, I will talk to you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you laughed, learned something new, or just loved the time we spent together today, please leave a review of the podcast so that it's easier for the other Mirandas of the world to find it too. And if you want to connect with me between episodes, I highly suggest joining our free Facebook group using the link in the show notes. Love you lots, and I'll see you in the next episode.